Remember words by reading essays. A journalist's challenges in self-growth.
Today, we're going to study an article titled A Journalist's Challenges and Self-Growth. First, please just listen to the entire passage carefully from beginning to end. Don't worry about details yet. Focus on the overall story and get a general impression of the main idea.
Sophie was a young journalist who often had to dredge up old scandals of politicians for her newspaper. One day, while investigating a health fraud, she even had to scoop out piles of rotten files from the archives. Exhausted, she tried to tap into her creativity to make the report more compelling, but the pressure came inexorably as her boss decided to outsource part of the editing work to another company. The editor from that company was obdurate, always trying to skew her words. Some stalwarts in the newsroom, loyal to old traditions, also resisted her fresh ideas. Still, Sophie wanted to spare her readers from misinformation. She knew she couldn't toy with the truth. Her impish colleague Mark sometimes joked around, but his dog support kept her motivated. The story she uncovered was entirely shocking. A pharmaceutical heartthrob in the medical field had fake results. His reputation was thought to be foolproof. Yet Sophie's work revealed the lies. At first, she felt daunted, doubting if she should confront such a giant. Her rival journalist tried to put gold on his own face, claiming he had the exclusive scoop. But Sophie's buoyant determination helped her chart new paths for her career. She stopped fretting over what others thought and no longer lamented about past mistakes. Instead, when her article went viral, she couldn't help but feel smug about her resilience. For Sophie, it was the beginning of a new chapter, fearless, relentless, and true to her calling.
Now, let's listen to the article again. This time, as we listen, I'll pause occasionally to explain some key vocabulary and important phrases that appear in the text. Please try to connect the meanings of these expressions with the context of the story.
Sophie was a young journalist who often had to dredge up old scandals of politicians for her newspaper.
Today, let's look at the phrase dredge up in the text. Dredge up means to bring something old, hidden, or unpleasant back into attention. Often something people would rather forget. In the story, Sophie dredges up old scandals, which shows her job requires revisiting uncomfortable truths from the past.
So, does dredge up always have a negative feeling?
Good question. Yes. Most of the time it does. It's often used for memories, secrets, or problems that are unpleasant or controversial.
Can we use it in daily conversation?
Absolutely. For example, don't dredge up old arguments. We've already solved them.
One day, while investigating a health fraud, she even had to scoop out piles of rotten files from the archives.
Now, let's focus on the phrase scoop out. Scoop out means to remove something by using a curved movement or a tool, such as a spoon or shovel. In the text, Sophie has to scoop out piles of rotten files, which vividly shows the physical effort and unpleasant nature of her investigation.
Is scoop out only used for physical objects?
Mostly yes. It usually describes taking out something tangible, like ice cream, sand, or trash.
Can it be used metaphorically?
Less often. But sometimes writers use it creatively to emphasize effortful removal, especially in descriptive writing.
Exhausted, she tried to tap into her creativity to make the report more compelling.
Next, let's look at the phrase tap into. To tap into something means to access or make use of a resource, skill, or feeling. In the text, Sophie tries to tap into her creativity to make her report more engaging. She's trying to use her creative skills to improve her work.
So, tap into is like using something that's already there?
Exactly. It's about utilizing something that's available, whether it's a skill, idea, or a resource, to achieve a goal.
Can we use it for emotions too?
Yes. For example, she tapped into her anger to write a powerful speech. It's all about drawing from something, whether it's a resource or feeling.
But the pressure came inexorably.
Now, let's look at the word inexorably. Inexorably means in a way that cannot be stopped, slowed down, or changed. In the text, the pressure comes inexorably, which shows that the stress Sophie faces keeps increasing and is impossible to avoid.
Is inexorably always used for negative situations?
Most of the time, yes. It's often used with pressure, change, or decline. But it can also describe unstoppable positive trends.
Can you give a simple example?
Sure. Time moves inexorably forward.
As her boss decided to outsource part of the editing work to another company.
Next, let's focus on the word outsource. To outsource means to have work done by an outside company or person instead of doing it in-house. In the text, Sophie's boss decides to outsource part of the editing work, which increases pressure and reduces her control over the final article.
Is outsource only used in business contexts?
It's most common in business and work settings, but it can also apply to any task given to external help.
Does outsourcing always cause problems?
Not necessarily. It can save time or money. But in Sophie's case, it creates conflict and frustration.
The editor from that company was obdurate.
Now, let's look at the word obdurate. Obdurate means stubbornly refusing to change one's opinion or attitude, even when there are good reasons to do so. In the text, the editor is described as obdurate, which explains why he insists on altering Sophie's words and won't listen to her ideas.
Is obdurate stronger than just saying stubborn?
Yes, it is. Obdurate sounds more formal and more negative, often implying unreasonable resistance.
Can it describe a person only?
Mostly, yes. But it can also describe attitudes or behaviors, like an obdurate refusal.
Always trying to skew her words.
Now, let's look at the word skew. To skew means to distort, twist, or present something in a misleading way. In the text, the editor tries to skew Sophie's words, which suggests changing her reporting so it no longer accurately reflects the truth.
Is skew always about information?
Often, yes. It's commonly used with data, results, news, or opinions, especially when accuracy is affected.
Can you give an easy example?
Sure. Selective facts can skew public opinion.
Some stalwarts in the newsroom, loyal to old traditions, also resisted her fresh ideas.
Next, let's focus on the word stalwarts. Stalwarts refers to people who are loyal, dependable, and strongly committed to certain beliefs or traditions. In the text, the stalwarts in the newsroom stick to old ways of working and resist Sophie's new ideas.
Is stalwart usually a positive word?
Generally, yes. It often praises loyalty and reliability. But in some contexts, like this one, it can suggest resistance to change.
Can it describe only people?
Mostly people or groups. such as party stalwarts. But sometimes it can describe institutions or supporters as well.
Still, Sophie wanted to spare her readers from misinformation.
Now, let's look at the word spare. In this context, spare means to save someone from something unpleasant or harmful. In the text, Sophie wants to spare her readers from misinformation, showing her sense of responsibility and care for the public.
Is spare different from save?
They're similar, but spare often emphasizes preventing someone from experiencing something negative, rather than rescuing them afterward.
Can you give another example?
Of course. The teacher spared the students unnecessary stress.
She knew she couldn't toy with the truth.
Now, let's look at the phrase toy with. To toy with something means to treat it lightly, carelessly, or without serious intention. In the text, Sophie knows she can't toy with the truth, which highlights her strong sense of journalistic ethics.
Is toy with always negative?
Often. Yes. It usually suggests a lack of seriousness, especially when the situation actually requires responsibility.
Can it be used in other situations?
Yes. For example, he toyed with the idea of changing jobs, meaning he considered it casually without making a firm decision.
Her impish colleague Mark sometimes joked around.
Now, let's look at the word impish. Impish describes someone who is playful, mischievous, and slightly naughty in a charming way. In the text, Sophie's colleague Mark is described as impish, which shows that he jokes around and brings humor into a stressful newsroom.
Is impish a positive or negative word?
It's mostly positive or affectionate. It suggests harmless mischief, not serious trouble.
Can it describe adults? Not just children.
Yes, definitely. Adults can be impish too, especially when their humor is playful and lighthearted.
But his dog support kept her motivated.
Now, let's focus on the word dogged. Dogged means showing strong determination and persistence, especially in difficult situations. In the text, Mark gives Sophie dog support, meaning he continues to support her without giving up, even when things get tough.
Is dogged similar to persistent?
Yes, very similar. However, dogged often emphasizes staying firm despite obstacles or pressure.
Can it describe actions as well as people?
Absolutely. You can say dogged efforts or dogged determination, not just a dogged person.
The story she uncovered was entirely shocking.
Now, let's look at the word entirely. Entirely means completely or fully, with nothing left out. In the text, the story Sophie uncovers is entirely shocking, which strongly emphasizes how surprising and unexpected the truth is.
Is entirely stronger than very?
Yes. Entirely doesn't just intensify, it shows total completeness, not just degree.
Can it be used with negative meanings?
Yes. For example, the plan was entirely wrong.
A pharmaceutical heartthrob in the medical field had fake results.
Now, let's look at the word heartthrob. A heartthrob refers to someone who is widely admired and attractive, often charming or glamorous, especially in the public eye. In the text, the pharmaceutical heartthrob is a respected and admired figure in the medical field. which makes the scandal even more shocking.
Is heartthrob usually used for actors or celebrities?
Yes, most commonly. But it can also describe any public figure who is highly admired. As in this article.
Is it a formal word?
Not really. It's informal and expressive, often used in media or storytelling.
His reputation was thought to be foolproof, yet Sophie's work revealed the lies.
Now, let's focus on the word foolproof. Foolproof means so well designed or reliable that it cannot fail or be misunderstood, even if someone makes mistakes. In the text, the man's reputation is thought to be foolproof, meaning people believe it is completely safe from doubt or criticism.
Does foolproof mean something is perfect?
It means almost impossible to go wrong. But in real life, as the story shows, nothing is truly perfect.
Can it describe systems as well as people?
Yes. You can talk about a foolproof plan, method, or device.
At first, she felt daunted, doubting if she should confront such a giant.
Now, let's look at the phrase felt daunted. To feel daunted means to feel intimidated, discouraged, or overwhelmed by a difficult situation. In the text, Sophie felt daunted when she realized she might have to confront a powerful figure, showing her fear and self-doubt.
Is daunted stronger than nervous?
Yes. Daunted suggests fear mixed with a sense that the challenge is very big, not just simple nervousness.
Can you use it with tasks? Not just people.
Absolutely. For example, she felt daunted by the amount of work.
Her rival journalist tried to put gold on his own face, claiming he had the exclusive scoop.
Now, let's look at the phrase, put gold on his own face. This is a figurative expression meaning to boast, brag, or exaggerate one's own achievements in order to look important or impressive. In the text, Sophie's rival tries to put gold on his own face by claiming he has the exclusive scoop, even though it may not be true.
Is this a common English idiom?
It's not very common in everyday English, but it's easy to understand from context and is often used to criticize self-promotion.
Is it similar to showing off?
Yes, very similar. Both suggest making yourself look better than you really are, especially in an unfair way.
But Sophie's buoyant determination.
Now, let's focus on the word buoyant. Buoyant means cheerful, optimistic, and able to stay positive despite difficulties. In the text, Sophie's buoyant determination shows that even under pressure and competition, she remains confident and hopeful about her future.
Does buoyant only describe emotions?
Mostly in this context. Yes. But literally, it can also mean able to float on water.
Can you give another example?
Sure. She stayed buoyant even after repeated failures.
Helped her chart new paths for her career.
Now, let's look at the phrase chart new paths for. To chart new paths means to plan and create new directions or opportunities, especially when doing something innovative or different. In the text, Sophie charts new paths for her career, showing that she actively shapes her future instead of following others.
Is chart similar to plan?
Yes. But chart emphasizes careful thinking and exploration, like mapping unknown territory.
Can we use it outside of career topics?
Absolutely. For example, the company charted new paths for growth.
She stopped fretting over what others thought.
Now, let's look at the phrase fretting over. To fret over something means to worry excessively or feel anxious about it, often about things you can't fully control. In the text, Sophie stops fretting over what others thought, showing her emotional growth and increased confidence.
Is fret over stronger than worry about?
Yes. Fret over suggests constant or unnecessary worrying, not just brief concern.
Can it be used in everyday English?
Definitely. For example, don't fret over small mistakes.
And no longer lamented about past mistakes.
Now, let's focus on the phrase lamented about. To lament about something means to express deep regret, sadness, or disappointment over it, often repeatedly. In the text, Sophie no longer lamented about past mistakes, which shows she has learned to move forward instead of dwelling on regret.
Is lament more formal than complain?
Yes. Lament is more formal and emotional, often used for serious or meaningful losses, not minor issues.
Can it be used in spoken English?
It can, but it's more common in writing or formal speech than casual conversation.
Instead, when her article went viral, she couldn't help but feel smug about her resilience.
Now, let's look at the phrase feel smug about. To feel smug about something means to feel quietly proud or self-satisfied, sometimes a little too pleased with yourself. In the text, Sophie feels smug about her resilience after the article goes viral, showing her private sense of achievement.
Is smug always negative?
Often it has a slightly negative tone, suggesting too much self-satisfaction. But in this context, it's mild and understandable.
Can it describe feelings without showing them openly?
Yes. Smug often describes an inner feeling, not necessarily something you express aloud.
For Sophie, it was the beginning of a new chapter, fearless, relentless, and true to her calling.
Next, we'll listen to the passage one more time without stopping. This final listening will help you consolidate your understanding and notice how the key words and phrases work naturally within the article.
Sophie was a young journalist who often had to dredge up old scandals of politicians for her newspaper. One day, while investigating a health fraud, she even had to scoop out piles of rotten files from the archives. Exhausted, she tried to tap into her creativity to make the report more compelling, but the pressure came inexorably as her boss decided to outsource part of the editing work to another company. The editor from that company was obdurate, always trying to skew her words. Some stalwarts in the newsroom, loyal to old traditions, also resisted her fresh ideas. Still, Sophie wanted to spare her readers from misinformation. She knew she couldn't toy with the truth. Her impish colleague Mark sometimes joked around, but his dog support kept her motivated. The story she uncovered was entirely shocking. A pharmaceutical heartthrob in the medical field had fake results. His reputation was thought to be foolproof. Yet Sophie's work revealed the lies. At first, she felt daunted, doubting if she should confront such a giant. Her rival journalist tried to put gold on his own face, claiming he had the exclusive scoop. But Sophie's buoyant determination helped her chart new paths for her career. She stopped fretting over what others thought and no longer lamented about past mistakes. Instead, when her article went viral, she couldn't help but feel smug about her resilience. For Sophie, it was the beginning of a new chapter, fearless, relentless, and true to her calling.
All right. That brings us to the end of today's lesson. I hope this article has helped you better understand both the language and the theme of journalistic integrity and personal growth. Thank you for your attention. And I'll see you next time.